Well, hey folks, it's Mike from Profiling Evil, and I want to start out another episode with this creepy reading from Chad Daybell's story, his love affair with Lori. Now remember, they went by the code names of James and Elena, and don't forget, Chad believed he was the reincarnated James the Just from biblical times.
They would both attend the same event in mid-November, and it seemed like that day would never arrive. He knew they had been married before, and they had been close friends with the Savior when he lived in Jerusalem. That relationship was now meant to continue in this lifetime. They hungered for each other, and he leaned forward and fulfilled a promise he had made to her a few days earlier. He gently kissed her tender lips, and the same heavenly electricity filled his entire body. The passionate magic they had felt many centuries earlier came surging back powerfully.
Well, let's dig in and talk about the Lori Daybell trial and what appears to be a whole bunch of theatrics going on. And what happened today, boy, is just adding more intrigue to this case. Live from Court TV, we're talking about the Daybell cult. Hey everybody, welcome to Profiling Evil. I hope you'll take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell. Thanks so much for helping us out by subscribing, and please share us with your friends. I joined Court TV's Vinnie Politan last night to talk about the Lori Daybell trial and explore some of the cult characteristics that are going on in this particular case. Now, the defense kicked off this morning with another round of cross-examination on the discovery of JJ and Tylee's bodies in Chad Daybell's backyard. I spoke on Court TV about these building blocks and how they're strategically being placed by the prosecution. Frankly, I was really impressed because another major building block was laid today when detectives revealed that as they pulled those boards off of JJ's grave, remember they dug down a layer of dirt and then found some boards and rocks. When they pulled those boards, they discovered the same kind of board inside Chad Daybell's garage. Now, the evidence against Chad and Alec is growing, but this one's going to be really interesting because it's going to be behavioral and digital evidence, in my opinion, that's going to be needed to prove that Lori was in on the whole conspiracy. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think that they're going to have a difficult time doing this, but I do think that with Lori's alibi, remember, she says she wasn't there, and it's proven when the murders occurred and the disposals occurred. But I'm thinking, so what? I think there's enough other evidence to help bring it all together. Now, hey folks, it's Mike from Profiling Evil, and I want to just take a quick minute to remind you about the Chad and Lori Daybell story map. You can find it at profilingevil.com under story maps, and I hope you'll go over and visit it. It gives you a chance to go through and kind of explore this case from beginning to end. Has all kinds of information about those first hearings, about what happened. But then I think one of the things that's pretty dang cool is it goes in and it talks about them individually. Not only has an overview, but it has a way to check out more about Lori, her former husbands, where she lived, Chad and his former wife, Tammy, and the circumstances leading up to her death. You can learn more about what light and dark is, according to them, and actually hear Chad speaking at one of those Preparing a People conferences. You can go into other family members like Stacy Cope, Joseph Ryan, Charles Vallow, Alex Cox, JJ and Tylee. You can look at the court processes, and you can get a little more information about Profiling Evil. So again, I hope you'll go back and check that out. Now let's get back to the program. Now, another important thing came out in the trial today when Detective Hermosillo was talking. He commented that none of the tips that police received came from the public in aiding and finding JJ and Tylee. Now, that's a reminder to those of us in the true crime community to only report tips and leads that are truly viable, because investigators have to dig into them and look into them. And undoubtedly, they wasted a huge amount of time on these bogus tips. So if you've had a dream or something else, please get something else before you send it in. Get something that corroborates your thoughts. Now, send in those thoughts if you've got them, though, because there are cases that have been solved by someone who saw something and decided to say something about it. Now, it also became clear today that Tylee was the first person to die, somewhere around September 8th or 9th, according to testimony. But JJ followed on September 22nd or 23rd. Now, keep in mind, as they're laying these building blocks, that the first attempt on Tammy Daybell's life was on the 9th of October, 7 days after Lori Daybell reportedly ordered the wedding rings, that malachite ring, online, and her other wedding stuff that she was purchasing. Tammy reported on the 9th that somebody with a weapon was shooting at her, and 10 days later, she'd mysteriously die in her sleep, only to be discovered by her husband, Chad Daybell, who somehow convinced the coroner not to do an autopsy. Well, now we know that she died of asphyxiation, and this is really going to make his trial interesting. In fact, I wonder if they're not going to be trying to figure out how to negotiate this out of a death sentence into a plea. Well, and then we were served with the next major curveball in this trial when the prosecution stepped up and asked the judge to cancel today's hearing early and request that they reschedule on some of the other days of testimony coming up because a member of the prosecution's team had a sudden death in the family. Things quickly ground to a halt and things wrapped up early like they had asked. Well, last night, Vinny and I talked about the theatrics of Lori Daybell reportedly having this meltdown in the courtroom. Shanley talked about it. She witnessed it. I just wanted to bring this out and talk about the fact that she wanted to be excused while investigators talked about the gruesome and horrific details of finding JJ and Tylee in Chad's backyard. The judge denied her request and made her stay. Vinny asked my thoughts surrounding Lori's online purchase of those malachite rings, wedding apparel, and the other items, all things that were purchased using dead Charles Vallow's credit card. And more importantly, he wanted to know what my thoughts were on what this meant to the investigation. Let's listen into that.
And joining us from Salt Lake City, Utah, religious cult expert, retired police commander, and author of Deceived, Mike King is with us. You can also check out his Profiling Evil podcast. Great to see you. Yeah, the timing is everything, Mike. The timing. October 2nd, searching for a wedding ring, and she marries a man who's still married, not seeking a divorce, but whose wife tragically dies 2 weeks and change after she's already looking for the wedding ring?
As we watch this thing unfold, it's really becoming interesting to see how each building block is making something that follows so much more valuable. And boy, you're right, Vinny. Just the idea that there's this much planning, 17 days or so before Tammy dies, that they're planning a wedding, that they're purchasing things, they've got tickets in hand, and people start falling by the wayside. Children, Tammy, and this whole thing is really coming together nicely. And it's only the third day the second day of testimony.
Yeah.
Well, our conversation shifted a little because everyone continues to ask the question of whether Lori Daybell had some type of mystical or magical spell that she had cast upon her brother Alex and her new husband Chad. I mean, how on earth did she get their allegiance? And how on earth, if she's guilty of what they've accused her of, did she orchestrate these murders?
Mike, explain to us what you think here is happening. Is this a brother who's infatuated with his sister and will do anything for her? Or is this someone who's fallen into the spell of this cult and is just listening to the words of the leaders and just following whatever they want? Or is it more about this, do you think, this brother-sister bizarre relationship?
There's a lot of discussion around the fact that they have deep, deep roots with each other going back a long time, so we can't discount that. But I'll tell you, Vinny, I have always been more frightened by the number 2 person in a cult or closed society than the number 1 person, because that's the guy or the person that has something to prove, to show allegiance, to show that they are more enlightened and more purified, to pull the, well, I hate to say the word pull the trigger. In this case, pull the trigger. And this is the thing that's so exciting about this case in comparison to some of the cases that we cover here on Court TV together. And that is, this isn't just an eyewitness account, or this isn't just a little bit of forensic evidence. This is physical, forensic, eyewitness, circumstantial, and tons of behavioral evidence. And I think it's really going to be important that the prosecution continues to drive home with this jury, hey, okay, it's only the fact that there was a tire in the shed. Oh, but there was a tire missing on the car. And the same car happened to belong to Charles Vallow. And Alex happened to be the person that killed Charles Vallow. Those kinds of things aren't contested. Crazy case.
Absolutely. And all the pieces of this very complicated puzzle, I believe investigators have put together, but now the pressure's on the prosecution to lay them out correctly and convince this jury beyond any and all reasonable doubt.
Well, hey, folks, it's Mike from Profiling Evil, and I want to share my thoughts about our affiliate, TruthFinder. I use TruthFinder every single day to research the people and the cases that we're talking about here. But you can use it to reconnect with a loved one, find an old friend, or look up your former schoolmates. Now, they make searching really easy, and all you got to do is enter a name, an address, a phone number, or an email. Then you're provided with this really cool list that you can start to explore. Use TruthFinder to figure out who that new neighbor really is, or keep your family safe by checking out the parents in your kids' carpool. Now, many of you use the internet to search out new friends, but you can use TruthFinder to sniff out scammers and online predators, especially before you meet them in person. And folks, we get a small commission when you sign up. It's about enough to buy a small soda, but you gain the ability to satisfy your curiosity, protect your family, and find the truth out about people in your life. Please take advantage of the special Profiling Evil discount code. It's on the screen, and it's also in the description down below. And remember, you can cancel this thing at any time. Now, let's get back to today's crime case. Well, as we explored some of the other cult characteristics going on, Vinny focused on how quickly alleged cult members can change their behaviors, like Melanie Boudreau, and how they can become fully engaged and invested in the ideologies. As we chatted, I offered this perspective.
Extreme beliefs. Let's bring back in our guest, Chanley Painter, Mike Becker. Mike, let me ask you first about what you just heard there in this transformation of Melanie Boudreau from someone who didn't even go to church to who's going every day and wants to spend $10,000 on food to prepare for the end of the world.
I've always been interested by this kind of behavior where if a little bit is good, then a whole lot must be really valuable and really good. And we see this in extremism played out over and again in many different ways, whether it's an individual scripture study, or in this particular case, going to a place of worship on an extreme amount of visits, or if it's the way in which they're thinking about things, like one person is the only person that can make decisions for me, or that everything has to be run through prayer. I've run into people in these cults who can't even drive down a street, Vinny, without praying first whether they should turn right or left. And I'll tell you what, it is almost, I find myself wondering if this is an obsessive compulsive personality issue, or if it's something that cults just intrinsically drive into people, or are these cult leaders so good at finding the kind of people that will think like-mindedness, will go to the extreme, and they find a way to pull them in? Well, then Vinny turned our attention to the prosecution strategy in delivering this case to the jury. I shared something that I'd actually talked about a little earlier in the day with Court TV's Judge Ashley and Michael Ayala about how religion should come into these kinds of cases at a particular point in time, and maybe now isn't the time. Let me know if you agree with my strategy as you listen to this answer.
So, Mike, let me ask you, as the jury is hearing all of this, how do you think the jury reacts to hearing about this cult?
It's a really fine line, in my opinion, how far the prosecution goes in talking religion at this stage. And on many occasions, I recommended, after studying ritual crime for so long and running that unit, that we kind of keep religion out of the picture at this phase, Vinny, and I wonder if they're doing that, because this is a time to focus on the elements of a crime. What really are the elements of homicide? What are the elements of conspiracy, fraud? And then bring all this wacky stuff in during the sentencing phase.
Gotcha. What a great job tonight. Chanley Painter, stand by. We need more information from you. Mike King, Caitlin Becker helping us out so much. Great to see you, senior reporter, dailymail.com. And, of course, the Profiling Evil podcast. We'll be back.
Well, there you go. I hope you'll put your comments down below on this one, and I hope you'll join me tomorrow night on Court TV as we recap another day in the Daybell trial. I'm so grateful for Vinny and the Court TV team inviting me to come in and talk about cult behaviors. And I'm grateful for the chance to share some of the things that I've learned over investigating these kinds of crimes. Make sure, folks, you're hitting that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of our videos. And please consider joining our channel memberships. My favorite is the Academy level, where you get a little bit more information, and I think your donation really helps out a great deal. So thanks so much for supporting us there. Make sure you're checking us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course here on YouTube. And you can find Profiling Evil on your favorite podcast platform. Hey, make sure you're going to the Profiling Evil website and checking out our story maps, particularly the story map on the Daybell case. Hey, thanks a lot for your support, and we'll see you all soon at the next crime scene.